This is recording to the cloud. No, this is not CNN. This is not public television, but we try to do our best every week anyhow. This is low budget video on Bonk TV. This is week 6 of R511, and we will get into a lot of cognitive theory and maybe constructivist theory as well. I'll be giving an overview of cognitive theory in just a second, and then we'll field some questions from all of you. And then we'll go to my guest, Mengyuan Zhao, to talk about what she's up to in her current job that I kind of helped her get a decade ago. And Jennifer is here and joining us. And then we'll go back to me, and either we'll finish up with cognitive theory for about 20 minutes, or we'll go to constructivist theory. We'll probably end up with both. For me, this is kind of fun because my graduate training was kind of in cognitive psychology, and everyone at the time that was happening were quickly becoming constructivists. The historical lineage of psychology went from Wundt's lab, which really said introspection, looking inside one's mind, to behaviorism, to cognitivism, to constructivism, to social constructivism, to social critical theory, and on and on and on and on. And here we are today. Some might say that connectivism is a new theory, and we could maybe talk about that the final weeks in here, whether or not connectivism is in fact a theory that we need to pay attention to. And even if it is a theory, I am going to share my screen, but I'm going to have to optimize my sound and so forth. And then I have to show all windows. And then I have to pray that I got this right. I did get this right. Okay, I'm going to show a couple of videos. If you've been to the class syllabus, there is a link to my shared online videos for learning theories. And just to give you a sense of things, if you go to that, and it might be right at the top. Let's see here. If it's not, I will send it to all of you. I don't see it. I'm quickly looking. So when you get to it, you can get to all sorts of videos on behavioral theory, social learning theory, which I might talk about. I haven't been doing social learning theory the past couple of years. That's Bandura's theory of how we learn from vicariously watching others get reinforced. And it's an important theory. And I think I might try to at least touch upon it. Cognitive information processing we'll do tonight, and then we'll move into motivation and meaningful learning, schema theory, Piagetian theory, constructivist theory and situated learning, more constructivism, and on and on and on. Well, there are videos. I'm sorry if I'm scrolling too fast. There are videos there that you could watch that would explain most of the theories that are out there. I'm going to there's a couple of quick ones, just a warm-up videos here that get at cognitive theory. And so, Kristen, can you hear this?
Billions of brain cells.
Did you hear that, Kristen?
Yeah, it's clear.
Thank you.
Are not done forging links with billions of other brain cells. Eventually, there will be trillions and trillions of connections between cells, charged with electrical pulses rippling like lightning storms across the hills and valleys of the brain's deeply furrowed tissue. Every cell in its place, every link between cells carefully organized. Nothing random, nothing arbitrary.
What we would really love to understand is how the brain, during development, generates millions and millions of neurons, sends them to the right position in the brain, and then somehow instructs each of those individual nerve cells to form very, very specific connections with one another. You can think about development like a play that follows a script that is written down by the genetic code, but it has no director, it has no producer, and it has a bunch of actors that have never spoken their lines before. Despite all this, you pull the play off. To me, that's a miracle.
So that's the first video of 3 that I've just got queued up, little short ones, just to get us thinking about the brain tonight.
When we learn something new, neurons in the hippocampus forge strong connections,
by sending electrochemical messages across the tiny gaps between them, called synapses. Essential to the strength of the connection is the movement of electrically charged particles of calcium drifting through the synapses. When the particles stream into a neuron, they trigger chemical changes that make the connection more reliable. The calcium flows through a molecule that's the gateway to the neuron, the NMDA receptor.
That's the second one. And I'll sneak out of that and go to, well, I'm actually not going to show the third one. So there are a whole bunch more. And there's a couple on Rain Man, who you probably have heard of. You've seen the Dustin Hoffman movie. And there's other ones on people who have super memories, and some on people who have lost their memories. And basically every day is a new day. There's a lot that we don't know about how the brain works. Still, after more than 100 years in psychology, there are a lot of interesting people that are being studied today who remember everything they ever did on a particular day and what they had for lunch and all that kind of stuff. If you are interested in that, one person, her name is Jill Price. Another person's name is Daniel Temmet. Jill is an American. Daniel's in the UK. Daniel's book is Born on a Blue Day. I forget Jill Price's book, but I actually recommend it. Her dad was a Hollywood movie agent, and so she met people when she was 6 and 7, 8 years old. Famous folks. She remembered every single day of her life. I mean, it's a pretty interesting story to tell. Part of their brains are enlarged in some degree. And Daniel Tammet has autism, and I think he had a seizure, and some things got intermixed so that he sees numbers as visual images, and he can like count pi out to thousands of digits and all that kind of thing. He invented his own language, a Icelandic type of language. He can do mathematical feats like multiplying 10,492 by 11,894 and give you the answer just like that. And the guy's pretty incredible. Those videos I could show, but I think they're going to, for the sake of time tonight, so I'm only going to do a brief entry into cognitive theory. I'd rather hit some of the research and what it says about information processing and things that are more aligned with what instructional designers or learning designers, learning experience designers have to do. By the way, last Saturday's show in my podcast was on what learning experience designers do, LEDs. And so if you're interested in the notion of a learning experience designer, you might look at that podcast or webcast. And next week we have Afghani women who are in Bangladesh who escaped right before the Taliban took over, and they're in a master's program in education. So we'll hear what the Asian University of Women is providing for folks that are refugees and people who are left behind and so forth. It's going to be a fascinating show too. And just this afternoon, I got an email from my friend Brian, Brian Alexander, and his show this week is going to be about a guy who wrote a book, or has a website and podcast show, What I Should Have Known When I Became an Instructional Designer. And so it might be interesting to watch that special on Thursday. I will send that link to everybody. I'll send all those links after class to folks. And my slides are posted to Dropbox. And before I get in here, I want to make sure we're at 7:15 already. Mangwan's coming in 15. Does anyone have a quick question for me about any logistical kinds of things or anything they're uncertain about? Give me a thumbs up if the answer is no, you don't.
I do have one question.
Yes.
For the assignment that's due this evening, is it okay if we do it singly? Do you prefer that we partner up, or
if you haven't decided by this evening, that came up last week several times. And as I said, most faculty really recommend collaborative experiences, but I don't require it. So there's always a recommendation because you can gain a lot from it. But I realize people have hectic work lives and schedules. Many of the faculty teach asynchronously, and they find that the collaboration provides the engagement in their courses. Whereas I have these synchronous options, so I think we can get some engagement with others through this means, but there's nothing, both are viable and important. So that reminds me in this recording, that assignment is due Saturday night with a 5-day grace period. So try to get it to me so that I can be looking at it on Sunday and so forth and on through. Okay, let me go to my slides for, and Tiana's shaking her head. Oh no, Dr. Bonk, you know.
I was getting ready to say, Kristen, it's not due till Saturday.
I thought it was due on Saturday too. And then he said a couple minutes ago, like, oh, with the extension, it's due on Saturday. And I was like, I thought it was like due on Saturday.
Yeah, if you look at the syllabus,
policy.
yeah, the grace period, if you look at the syllabus, it says today,
Uh-huh.
and it says 5-day, so it can be turned in. The thing about the reason to do that is if I get some early, I can grade them and I don't have to get them all at once, right?
Saved by the grace period.
Yeah, and everybody pretty much takes the grace period.
Okay.
Not all, because some people have things they want to do on Saturday, like maybe watch women's basketball, or I don't know if they're even on Saturday, but they're on tonight, a big game tonight against Ohio State. So we will try and get, no, I don't know if we will get done before the game's over. Anyways, this is called CIP theory, cognitive information processing, and it leads us to constructivism, which really is, I have 3 lectures or talks about constructivism, so it must be kind of important in my list of things that you should know about if I'm going to talk about it 3 times, but we'll see what I actually get to. So we're not just looking at a change in behavior anymore, we're talking about the changes in internal mental functioning, which is what those 2 videos had indicated. We want to help wire up the brain so that knowledge is not just available, but it's accessible. It's not just tip of the tongue knowledge, but it's something we can get at and use. There are many problems in behavioral theory that behaviors even admitted to. Computers and different forms of technology, chatbots and so forth, computer log data, have opened up the black box a bit and let us explore inside. Think aloud protocols, thinking aloud and retrospective analyses, verbal protocols as data enable us to understand a bit what's going on inside. So interview processes, computer log data, eye movement, keystroke mapping, like my dissertation, are all ways that kind of can help us understand the cognitive and metacognitive strategies that a human might undergo in solving a problem. There are 3 main parts of the cognitive information processing model. And by the way, the model itself was developed by Alan Schifrin, who's a former faculty of the psychology department at IU. So you might see Atkinson and Schifrin, the information processing model, over and over and over. Well, I once tied my shoes in the gym, sitting next to him, got to ask him questions. He was working out before me or after me, I forget which, but I have met him on 1 or 2 occasions. Pretty famous guy, and he's known for this model was, in its prime in the 60s, and 70s into maybe the start of the 80s, and then people started thinking about other learning theories like constructivism, social constructivism, and so forth. But we have a sensory register which stores everything for a brief moment in time, very brief flashing moment. Then we can have our workbench, our literal short-term memory, our working memory that is available to us as long as we're thinking about things. We can attend to 7 plus or minus 2 things at any point in time, and therefore our telephones, our numbers are 7 digits long. And that's one of the reasons, maybe. And then if we think about it long enough and we connect it to what we already know, repeat it enough, it might get into our long-term memory and storage that's there in a more permanent. So sensory register is a virtual copy. It's virtually unlimited to whatever is around us, available to our senses, right? But only very brief kinds of things, very, very brief traces of that information. If we attend to something long enough, it can go into our working memory and we can start using that information in our problem-solving processes. And if we chunk that information together, such as remembering our telephone numbers or remembering digits in a mathematical equation according to our best track times, or basketball percent, whatever, if you're trying to link it into what you already know and chunking that knowledge in, then it becomes easier to recall a lot of information. So my daughter's phone number is 219-4444. Very easy. My number is 322 Curt, 812 area code, and so forth and so on. So we chunk that, like IBM is International Business Machines. We don't have to remember International Business Machines anymore. We've chunked that information together. So we can see it, we can attend to the stimuli in our environment and perceive it that it's there. And if we do that long enough, it goes into our working memory, wherein we can rehearse it, we can connect it to what we already know, and hopefully we can connect it well enough that it stays in our long-term memory, not just there, not just available, but it's accessible to us over a longer period of time. If we then think about what metacognitive aids or strategies we might utilize in trying to turn that from working memory into long-term memory, well, then we have to start thinking about planning skills, summarizing, meta memory, meta monitoring what it is that you know, so that you, in fact, this is also called the little man in your head, or little person in one's head that kind of turns on and off the switch. I'm not sure that's a good analogy or not, but we have capabilities to reflect on our thinking, to think about our thinking, and then to call up the strategies that we need at certain points in time, when and if we do need them to solve a problem or enter into a situation and so forth. And I've already mentioned what short-term memory is, and the rehearsal process there. The possible outcomes, we either purge that from what we've seen, or we rehearse it over, or we transfer it into our long-term memory. Again, it's more unlimited in fact. So is our long-term memory unlimited. And so, we can look at numbers, and I could put different numbers and have us try and memorize that. Normally I go through a whole sequence. I just put a couple and then have people remember. You'd have a lot of difficulty remembering that one, Tiana. I'd have to go back for a few seconds for Tiana to really look at that. But the point is, she probably had a pretty easy time with this and a little more difficult with these. So, there are limitations on what we can attend to, what we can rehearse, and so forth. And so now we can elaborate, we can rehearse and repeat, which is what behaviorists love. They love repetition and drill and kill. Tiana doesn't like that. Jennifer doesn't like that, right? And Kristen doesn't like that. We want to do more elaboration on what we know, thinking about the connections between existing prior knowledge and the new knowledge. If we can do that, if we can make analogies, metaphors, if we can extend or elaborate on the information, then we're more likely to have that information usable for us later on. Now, at the end, right before taking your test, you might use mnemonics, mnemonic aids or chunks of some kind, and take those numbers that you saw, 219-254-20, and turn it into a telephone number, or turn it into best track times or something else. When it is available for us automatically, because we've tried that activity repeatedly, like driving a car or playing the violin or playing piano or reciting your times tables or whatever it is, it becomes automatized. And for some of us who are professors, writing becomes an automatized skill. We've got hundreds of things we've written, and so we learn these skills over time. We weren't naturally writers to begin with. In IU basketball, men's and women's are doing quite well. Well, they weren't born to be basketball players. They practiced. It took a long time to get to the skills that they have. And so cognitive theory points out that expertise might take 10,000 hours or 5 years of diligent practice to move towards that area of expertise. And that's why doctoral programs are often 5 years long, and we make you work really hard. We want you to be an expert when you're done. So long-term memory is different from short-term memory because it's not the conscious. Working memory is our consciousness with one another. Long-term memory has more capabilities. They're unlimited. It's like your hard disk, or unlimited hard disk resident inside your head somewhere. And it potentially is always there. We just have to find the right retrieval mechanisms, like we saw in the video there, the calcium deposits going in our brains and so forth, firing those neurons. And it can re-enter working memory. It can go from working memory to long-term memory. It can re-enter it, and we can retrieve that knowledge. Hopefully we do retrieve that. So we store it, retrieve it, we encode it, restore it, and retrieve it. So there's terms that cognitive psychologists throw out there, like rehearsal versus elaboration. Rehearsal is more connected to behavioral theory. Elaboration is more connected to cognitive theory, trying to take that and create multiple links or pathways for that knowledge to come available to us. It's not just available learning, like what we get maybe with multiple choice questions, but it's accessible, more like getting essay-based questions that we can readily pull that information up and not have to have it listed in a multiple choice listing somewhere for us to identify. So you can recognize versus recall it. You can actually have it so deeply learned that we have the ability to recall that, not just to recognize it from a list of options in a multiple choice quiz. There are both the factual knowledge that we're learning, declarative knowledge, as well as how to do something of procedural knowledge, like how to drive a car, how to kick a football, field goal to win the Super Bowl like the person did yesterday, how to throw a flag as a referee did incorrectly yesterday at the end of the game to let the Kansas City people win. Not that I care all that much about Philadelphia, but I was disappointed the way the game ended. So we have our declarative knowledge that can be broken down into stories as well as verbal knowledge or definitions of what something is. And so many of us are better at the episodic side and can remember stories. Some people are really good with verbalizing the semantic knowledge, the definitions or explaining what something is. I think I'll skip over some of these things. They're in the lecture if you watch this, for the sake of trying to get through as much as I can here in a few minutes. So there's a difference between declarative, factual, procedural, how to do something, and conditional knowledge, knowing when to engage in a certain type of behavior, when to enact a particular metacognitive or cognitive strategy, depends on the situation, like knowing that we don't know something or we're getting behind. We need to maybe make a plan or a timeline or whatever it is. We're not ready for task 3 or task 4 in 511 and so forth. And there are different models for how one stores and remembers information. Some think that we learn surface level up, that we have to remember the basic facts, and then from that we can build on. Others believe we learn the gist, and from the gist, a comprehension model, we can subsume other pieces of that passage underneath it. And so some educational psychologists are really focused on the organizational structure of the material, the outlines, the headings, the famous quotes that someone had said over time, the relationships with other concepts. So we're trying to create an organizational aid, like a mind map, concept map, a timeline, a taxonomy, a flow chart, something else, a Venn diagram or whatever it is. And then you can interrogate what you know or what you're about to know through higher level order questioning. So we're moving to higher levels of Bloom's questioning, getting evaluation and synthesis and analysis types of questions instead of just repeating the basic facts. And so when we think about the knowledge that we're learning, some is just the definitions, like being a thesaurus, a personal thesaurus, or the rules of getting through the IST master's or doctoral program, or the basic facts of what the IST program is and who are the faculty and so forth. And then there are the procedural knowledge of what one needs to do to complete the qualifying exam or the dissertation or whatever it is you're charged with doing. And then knowing how to apply your new IST or learning design technology knowledge when you're in the workforce, when you take on a new job or whatever it is. So organizing, according to educational psychologists, organizational aids are one of the most powerful aspects of learning. And so we want to help individuals find ways, seek ways to organize the information that we're imparting as instructors or instructional designers. We want to form some kind of image or conceptual map or roadmap for them to learn. Some feel as though there are mnemonic aids, the keyword method, peg word method, story mnemonic, whatever it is, using acrostics or acronyms or whatever, that are very useful and valuable, but those things are fleeting or temporary. So I'm going to briefly mention it, and you can watch my video lecture. But if you ever use the peg word method, where 1 is bun, 2 is shoe, 3 is door, 4 is 3 is tree, 4 is door, 5 is hive. Trying to, Tiana might tell me I have to remember Kleenex. Well, that's number 1 is mine. I think Kleenex in a bun. And then Jennifer says, how about hot dogs? And I think 2 is shoe. Oh, hot dogs in a shoe. And then, Kristen says, well, you got to remember rubber bands. So I think rubber bands from a tree. So 1 is bun, 2 is shoe, 3 is tree. And I have these images in my head when I go to the grocery store. And that's how some people remember their information for the exam that way. And that's not the most effective way or most efficient way, because every time you learn a new list, you'll forget the old list. But and again, many people go well beyond 10 and go up to 50 or 60 or 70 in remembering items, and it can be effective. And there is research studies that show there's a huge effect size if you use those kinds of mnemonic aids. It's effective in the short term. It can be effective, if as a psychological aid, a comfort, but difficult to use if information is thrown at you really in a fast way. It's hard to reflect that quickly. So I'm just going to skip over some. I'll mention the tetrahedron model. So tetrahedron model from Jenkins and from John Bransford, who recently passed away. One of the most famous cognitive psychologists of all time, and he almost took a job in Bloomington, almost became the head of our center back before I was hired. John Bransford and Jenkins point out there are only 4 things that really foster learning, or you can think about in terms of the learning environment. You can think about the learning activities, rehearsal or elaboration or whatever, or highlighting or whatever. You think about the critical tasks. Is it problem solving or problem finding or recall or recognition? You can think about the traits of the learners coming in, their attitudes, their prior knowledge, their dispositions, and so forth, their age levels, their psychosocial needs, their well-being. And then there are the nature materials. Are they virtual materials? Are they haptic, interactive, games? Are they text-based, video-based? Those 4 things. And if you notice, it's only the only one sometimes teachers have control over is the one on the left. That's the learning activities, because the materials are often bought by the school system, and the Department of Education decides on the critical tasks, and the learners are the ones that show up in their class. So I have a class called 546 on instructional strategies, and that course we get at what the learning activities that we can engage students in. I'll skip over that. So knowing when and how to apply the declarative and procedural knowledge that you have is extremely important. That gets at metacognition, reflecting on your thinking, but also knowing when to utilize those strategies that you learned. There's Jill Price. That's her book, The Woman Who Can't Forget. Highly recommended. The Woman Who Can Never Forget What She Had for Lunch on January 3rd, 1984, or on January 3rd, 1998, or on January 3rd, 2002 and 22. Anyways, there's another gentleman in La Crosse, and there are about 60 people documented who cannot forget anything on any day. That'd be kind of scary, and I'd be schizophrenic. In fact, Mary Lou Henner is among those people, and she was in a television show that talked about that. So if you're interested, and I could have you remember a list of items, I could give you so much time to remember it, and then we could recall it. And I normally would, if we had a 3-hour class, we could go through the list. And if people tie emotions into certain items or make a story out of it, they tend to learn things better and recall it more. And I could have you recall it and write things down. We could use mnemonics to write things down. I could tell stories about all sorts of things, including my favorite taxi cab drivers. This guy in 2006 picked me up and took me to National Institute of Education in Singapore. And then when I got back in, got back outside, I was looking for a taxi. Out of 10,000 taxis, he showed up again. So I took his picture with me. I took a picture of this guy in Taiwan. He got my duck that squeaks. What do you call it? Squeaking duck, not Peking duck. And that's 2006 in Taipei. After what was a very memorable speech. So I took his picture to remember that day. This guy, my driver in Vietnam, I took his picture before leaving Vietnam. Then this guy in Chiang Mai, Thailand. You know, I have all these stories. I can call up all sorts of stories. This guy driving me around Taiwan, or the guy in Vietnam. Oh, so scary. Anyone driving in Vietnam is so scary. Oh God, motorcycles, bicycles, trucks, people almost dying every second when you drive by there. Oh, actually, that's Malaysia guy. Okay, that's the Vietnam guy, and that's another Vietnam guy, and that's a Chiang Mai guy. Anyways, I am going to stop here because Mengyuan is probably with us. And I promised her we'd be starting here at 7:30. So I will get back to the second half of that when we finish with Mengyuan. But I am going to stop the record. I'm going to pause the recording, I should say. Let me pause the recording. Back to week 6. We're in part 2 of 3 parts. And I'm going to put this all in one recording this week. I want to remind you all, I'm covering cognitive theory. I was trying to get to constructivist, but instructional designers should know about both cognitive theory and constructivist theory. And so I'm trying to hit the highlights. The videos are recorded. We're semi-flipping the class. You can watch, you can ask me any question you want. I'm just trying to hit the highlights in those, and I'll do more skimming after Mengyuan leaves. So Mengyuan Zhao started in 2010 or so, like August, and was in my R678 class at the time on emerging learning technologies on a Monday. She was seated in the 3rd row. It was a 3rd seat over, and next to her was someone named Shuya and Yua were on either side. And well, the 3 of them showed up in my Tuesday night class a couple of weeks back, and we're talking about the dissertation process. So Mengyuan was a master's student. All 3 of them were master's students. Back in 2010. Now, since then, Shuya has finished her doctorate, her PhD. Mengyuan's in the midst of data collection and analyses of her EDD, and Yua is doing her proposal at this time. She passed her quals. So they're all, hopefully, going to be getting done within like the next year. We should have a big celebration or party or something. So Mengyuan, before coming, she was in China and Beijing Normal, where I've been a couple of times. She got her undergrad in language and literature. It's one of the best universities in China, especially for educational technology. It probably has the most people, if you combine the people in Beijing Normal looking at distance learning and the people looking at educational technology. If those 2 departments, the distance ed is huge. If you were to combine the 2 of them together, it'd be the largest, I think, from what I understand, from my comprehension anyhow. I've been around the world a number of times. It's one of the, it would be the largest, I would think. There's a lot of great stuff going on at Beijing Normal, so she was lucky to be among theirs, and they're lucky to have her too. So now she's at Course Networking up in Indianapolis, which spun out of IUPUI. Dr. Ali Jafari, who built OnCourse, he built Angel, which sold to Blackboard for $100 million. She works for a serial entrepreneur in learning management systems. So Course Networking is like a newest version of a learning management system that's based on Twitter and Facebook-like social media, combined with the normal traditional LMS. There are many faculty at IUPUI, as well as IU Bloomington, who are experimenting with the course networking, as well as corporations, schools, and universities around the country. If you go to thecn.com, I think you might be able to find it. And within the CN, they have gamification, they have e-portfolios, they have an AI smart agent, smart learning agent called Ruby.
Yes, Rumi.
Rumi, which is an Iranian name, I think. And you can get points, points are in not blackberries, not blueberries, not boysenberries.
Pomegranates,
which are
seeds.
Yeah, which are also native to Iran. So Ali's doing all sorts of great things. He's trying to make it open source. They are making an open platform so you can get the people who are in the global south to utilize the course networking tools as well. And he's a professor at IUPUI. And so she's in the IUP Cyber Lab, which is an EdTech innovation lab. and it's in a cool part of the IUPUI campus, which will soon be University of Indianapolis and Purdue. I think Mengyuan will be a trader and she's going to work for Purdue, I think, or something like that. So
It's still being decided.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
oh, I hope we can
We'll
keep
see.
you. Yeah. I hope we keep you, Mengyuan. So, but we'll still bring you in. Mengyuan, would you like to kind of fill in the gaps of your history a little bit, things that I missed, besides having 2 children since you left and got your master's, 2 baby girls?
I have 2 daughters. One is 2 and one is 5.5. Yep,
5
2
and a half.
daughters.
And their names.
The older one is Everly, is a uncommon name, Everly, and the younger one is Claire. So 2 little girls, they keep me busy, but they're very lovely. I enjoy my time with them.
I'm keeping you busy too. Why don't we get to your slides so you can get back to them? If you can call
Sure.
those up.
Sure. I prepared a PowerPoint that will answer some of the questions Dr. Bonk has prepared. And I also plan to do a demo of course networking. Then I'm open for any questions. Okay, so how about I run through some of my PowerPoint slides, and then we can do Q&As. I hope this is a casual conversation with you all. Yeah, so Dr. Bonk did a really nice job introducing me. Oh, this slide actually should be the first. So yeah, my English name is Alice. My Chinese name is Mengyuan Zhao. I'm the Associate Director of Research and Development at IUPUI Cyber Lab and Course Networking. So this is the part I copied from my team's PowerPoint. The business part, like to tell people, I'm in charge of CN training, pedagogical, and implementation support. So you can kind of see part of my job responsibilities here. My email address is here. Feel free to jot down and contact me. Okay, so a quick introduction of our IUPUI Cyber Lab. Just as Dr. Bonk mentioned earlier, is an educational technology research and development laboratory that innovates and commercializes educational technology software since 1996. So the lab has been existing for almost 25 to 30 years. We are under the direction and supervision of Professor Ali Jafari. Dr. Ali Jafari has many great ideas, and he's an entrepreneur, and he has designed and developed several successful learning platforms.
He's known as either the father or the godfather of the learning management system. If you look him up in Wikipedia, so yeah, so he's known as, you know, kind of like the forerunner, the starter of the learning LMS. So
yeah, Dr. Ali Jafari, he is from Iran, so you may see some features on CN later that is in Farsi, his language.
Right.
Yeah, so our lab focus on education technology, innovation, software prototype, smart learning agent development, pedagogy innovation, and education technology commercialization. So these are some of the major projects at the Cyber Lab over the past 25 to 30 years. OnCourse, later becomes Sakai, is an open source learning management system. IU used it, I think, for about a decade or so before Canvas. And Angel Learning is a commercial version of the Sakai, which was sold to Blackboard for almost $100 million, brought back huge success of return on investment to Indiana University. And this is how our lab could have a nice location in this building on the IUPUI campus. I think about $20 million of the money from the Angel Learning project got invested in the construction of this building. So this is the technology and science laboratory building right next to the IUPUI library. on the IUPUI campus. And we got to choose the best location. So we're on the first floor. So if you are on IUPUI, feel free to visit us. We're in the engineering and technology or science and technology laboratory building, EL 101.
Last
Right.
year in May or April, I took a group from this class or from other classes up to visit. So it could happen again. We could visit again. IU made $30 million. That's the most Indiana University made on any sponsorship or any royalties ever at that point in time. So IU became a big promoter of the Cyber Lab because of that. Money talks sometimes, but
It does.
It does. So, the Sakai was Stanford, MIT, Indiana, and Michigan. The 4 universities created Sakai together. And that was the tool we used for over a decade. And then we went to Canvas more recently. Yeah.
Yep. Epsilon is a combination of learning management system and e-portfolio. So Dr. Ali Jafari has been saying Epsilon could be the LinkedIn, but they didn't get the right chance to get into the market. And course networking is our current project. So it started in 2011 with seed funding from Indiana University. So this platform, you can see we have been working on it for over a decade now. It's a social learning platform. It's academic social networking platform that has it's a social learning management system, and I will get onto the details in a little bit. User e-portfolio, gamification, AI-based smart learning agent. So it's a combination of all the past work at the Cyber Lab and getting better.
By the way, that Epsilon, that's sold to the New York Times.
Correct. Yeah, that one was sold to New York Times. Yeah. So just as I mentioned earlier, the course networking company was founded with seed funding from Indiana University in 2011. The next year, the platform, the CN.com, was launched. Course networking company, Course Networking LLC, has a headquarter in Indianapolis, but also has international offices in Malaysia and China. So we have our developers, most of them in Guangzhou, China. That is from the very first day of course networking. And those developers, we still keep quite some of the original staff, the original developers. So they are very skilled and now experienced. And we're happy to having them. And the Malaysia office is mainly responsible for the market development in Southeast Asia and Asia. So based on Google Analytics, as of now, we have near 2 million users worldwide. These are the core CN products. I'm going to dive into a live demo of a little bit of everything. So just as a quick summary, the CN platform we are developing here, the main part of it is a social learning management system, which comes with the gamification features. And I think about 2 to 3 years after we developed the first version of the course networking platform, we realized it's really difficult to convince institutions to switch from their current learning management system to another one, because committing to a learning management system is such a big thing to most of the institutions. And so based on that, we craft a minimized version, which is called CN Social. We hide those learning management features like gradebook and syllabus, files, and module tours, a task tool, other platform, the learning management system already provide. And we only gathered our most unique social and engaging learning features in this CN Social tool. And it's a LTI plugin. LTI stands for Learning Tools Interoperabilities. I believe most of you are familiar with the the terminology and then this technique. So learning tools can be integrated very easily through LTI. So this tool can be integrated with other learning management systems which support LTI, and these days most of them do. ePortfolio, this has been our R&D focus of the past 5 to 6 years. It's built upon users' CN profile. Initially, users just have a brief profile, and then we developed it into a more comprehensive ePortfolio. So it's kind of like LinkedIn, but this one is specifically designed for students. So it's an academic ePortfolio. Students are able to network with each other and put their assignments, put their learning artifacts, their learning reflections onto their ePortfolio. And they got to carry it lifelong because we made our ePortfolio social and lifelong. Rumi is a recent development. It's still in beta after about 2 years. The graduate research assistants in our Cyber Lab, they have been working on the Rumi project to develop different Rumi AI-based smart features. For example, a series of recommendation features. I'm going to quickly show you this one as well. So let's take a quick look at the platform we have been building the past 10 years.
Can I interrupt real quick, Mengyuan?
Yeah, definitely.
So you're in a unique position. Did you ever imagine when you're in the IST program having a job like this?
Yeah, good question. I prepared a slide for that. I was thinking going back to it.
Good.
Should I do a quick demo first and then let's go into those questions?
Yeah. But I'll just point out to the students here in 511 that we've had instructional designers come in the past few weeks. That's not the only kind of job that's available after you get a master's or a certificate or a doctorate in IST. There are a wide range of other possibilities. This is among them. So I made sure we included Mengyuan again, even though she was here last semester or last spring when I last taught this course. I didn't teach it in the fall. I don't like bringing the same person back because I don't want to get them tired too much, but I think this is important to show us the range of possibilities and also excite. Plus, she had jobs last time I brought her in here. She had 2 openings. I don't know if she has any openings now. So if you're looking for a job, she might talk at the end about what job openings she has, if you find what she's saying interesting and so forth. So go ahead, Mengyuan, go back the way you were going to, but then just as a precursor to what you might
Sounds good.
about.
Sounds good. And this time I'm going to do a quick demo, not getting into too much details of the CN features. I'm going to talk about my job, my position, and new things I see through my job. So this is the course networking platform after I log in. You can see my homepage filled up by these posts made visible to me. Could be from a course I teach or I take, or from my institution networks. I could also network with people based on my academic interest. So this is the social aspects of it. Let's say the instructional design group, right? I can see people who also tag themselves with this skill tag, look at their posts, their ePortfolio stuff. I can go to their ePortfolio, I can follow them, message them. Courses, sorry. This is what we start with. We had this CN Classic course. The Classic course has the task tool, you can see, and various of learning management system features you are familiar with. But right under these features, you see this is the course's social discussion feed. The discussion is right there. It's more student-centered. We support social constructive type of learning. So the students, whenever they see anything related to the course, they can jump into a conversation. Sorry, this course the channel recently expired. And we have these social features like hashtags. Learners could use hashtags to filter topics of their interest. This is a cultural exchange course, virtual exchange course, talking about sustainable development, SDGs. So let's say if people are interested in zero hunger, and then they click on it, can filter all of the posts and reflections, including the hashtag. And besides posts, we also have the polling feature to try to engage the learners. And analysis, that's one of the gamification features. While students participate in the discussion, they earn pomegranate or analysis. We have our analysis rules here. We define the seeds they can earn for each activity, and also how many seeds they could earn per 24 hours and 7 days. This is to help students to plan their work. And then the analysis they earn in the course, this can be part of the one of the gradebook items, so can be factored into the course grade. And the LTI tool we developed, so I don't have that one open, but I can quickly show you. So inside a Canvas course, oh, I'm sorry, I thought I logged in.
So Jennifer asked, are these students interacting within just one university or across location, institutions and organizations, or is that an option?
Option. So good question. So the discussion can be within a course. Like here, I'm showing you a Canvas course, and course networking is plugged in, right? When learners click on it, the corresponding CN course opens. This is the mini version I mentioned earlier. It only has those social engagement features here. This is a course discussion feed, right? But we allow the learners to reach out to global classmates. We connect the courses based on course category by default. Instructors could also connect to specific courses. And also there is a MyCampus layer there. So if IU students like to talk to their schoolmates, other people at Indiana University on CN, this is the Indiana University's institution feed. And what I showed you earlier in the full CN, remember the home feed, that is global. Unless the institution, they say, oh, we don't want our student to be exposed to everyone on CN, then they can, through the admin settings, to say homepage, student can only interact with others within the institution. Otherwise, it's global. Yeah. So showed you a little bit of the plugin. And about 3 years ago, during the pandemic, we realized how important to support learning professionals and also fully online programs and courses. So we come up with the second LMS format. It's called Pathway, and I'm in the instructor view of it. So the Pathway LMS in CN has a very streamlined structure. You probably see this structure in many other MOOC course platforms like Coursera or Udemy, right? The learners come in and they complete learning activities one after another, but we try to incorporate the social learning, the social discussion features. So after they watch a video, read some resources, they can jump into a post activity, create a post. And only after they complete this activity, they get a green check mark. The instructor could also say, users must complete the previous activity before and they can move on to the next one. So this is our Pathway LMS. We have micro analytics built in. Instructor could see on each activity who have completed it. And we also have course completion badge and certificate built in, and lesson completion badge. And all of these micro certifications directly go to the user's ePortfolio profile, which is the CN ePortfolio. So this is my profile ePortfolio. I try to build it as much as I can. So you can see it has many different sections and features. I tag my skills, and these skills reflected on my homepage for me to have conversations with others on the CN platform that can be across institutions. Expertise, document section, store my documents. Showcases is the backbone of the CN ePortfolio. So we have come up with the signature ePortfolio assignment concept and practice, encouraging our ePortfolio licensees to adopt a signature e-portfolio assignment using the showcase. Let's say to have students to reflect on what they learned in a course or produce a course project showcase, which can include many media formats, links, documents, tag skills, and people can recommend and endorse each other. Yeah, we have our badge engine, which another gamification feature. PBL, which is the acronym of points and badges and leaderboard. We also have the leaderboard in the course, which is the roster.
So a different PBL, not problem-based learning, not process-based learning, not project-based learning, but points, badges and leaderboards.
A leaderboard for gamification.
You have to write that up as a publication, you know.
Yeah, yep.
I like that.
The last part, Rumi. Rumi is the AI-based smart learning agent, so kind of like a personal assistant on the CM platform.
Well, that would be publishable today too. Everything's AI.
I'm going to talk more about AI. Yeah, it has been a hot topic and getting quite exciting lately, right? Yeah, Rumi right now provides several features on CN. Making announcement isn't really the AI-based feature, but you can see this dominant position of Rumi announcement enable CN admins and institution admin to push out important announcement. We also have community recommendation. So I'm able to select skills or competencies or study fields I'm interested, and add to my e-portfolio. That will add to my homepage. We have connection recommendations, recommending connections on the platform based on my profile and my performance, my activities on CN. I can look at their e-portfolio, follow them. We have job recommendations. This part, we need to enhance this intelligence. So right now, it's just you go to a platform, commonly used platform, already with your major and your location filled in, and you can look at most recent relevant jobs. The other one is the connect. I think I showed this one. What is the next one? The tips, learning tips. Well, I have a very, very advanced account, so most of those tips are not really relevant to me, where I have looked at them before. So through this feature, we give learning tips to learners and teaching tips to instructors. If they're on their e-portfolio page, we will give them some relevant tips. Let's say they haven't created a showcase, there will be a tutorial, encourage them to create a showcase. Let's say an instructor is teaching in a course, haven't set up anar seats, right? Haven't set up anar seats goal. We will give some introduction to the anar seats and the values and how to set up anar seats, stuff like that. Yeah, to try to make the learning and teaching more personal. So this is a quick overview of the CN platform. I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint. So going back to that question, or maybe let's start from here. So just let you take a quick look at my career path. I received my Bachelor in Art degree from Beijing Normal University in Language, Literature, and Literature and Language Education. I have a minor in English. The next couple of years, I work as an education book editor and a 5th grade teacher in Beijing while I was applying for IST. The summer of 2010, I came here and become an IST master student and graduated in 2 years. And after that, I worked shortly with an education evaluation firm in Bloomington. It's called Rockwell et al. So I conducted various of education evaluation project with them. Quite interesting. They have a lot of very interesting projects there. And then I landed my current job, which is but when I start, I was a research and project associate at the IEPUI Cyber Lab and Course Networking. In 2015, till now, I have been the associate director of research and development with the same project. So there is a question. I'm start putting the questions together here. There is a question asking whether my Beijing Normal University bachelor degree prepared me for what I'm doing now. So 3 quick points here. I really think it paved the way for my after college jobs, and that prepared me for my study at IST, my master program, right? And that prepared me for my job. So I connect the dots, and it's one of the dots. And you know, if you ask me what I learned back then as a bachelor student from the linguistic and language and literature program, I'm not using much of it, but I remember I was in a learning theory, learning foundation course, and the lecture is a big lecture hall class, and the professor used many lessons to talk about this debate of learning is a nature or is nurture. And so I still have a weak memory about what he discussed, but I see this really connect to what I learned here, and also the I'm still with the IST doctoral program, right? Through the doctoral program, I took adult education, adult learning as my as an elective course. So in that course, I really like that Bronfen-Brunner's ecological system theory. This theory analyzes learners from inside out. From inside, look into a learner's their psychological factors, right? Their mind sides and all of the features inside the person, right? And also look into the environment outside of the person. So it's from the close environment to the further environment, from the close environment of their family, school, right, to their neighborhood, to the big society. And also vertically, look at human development, look at a person, right, in this person's history to see what the outside environment has made the person like that. So this model really connect this debate, nature or nurture, look into learners' genetics and also the environment, small and big, near and far, and look at all of these factors as a reciprocal relationship. They really impact and affect each other. So I have been using this whenever I need to design something, I need to conduct a learner analysis, but it's also kind of a challenging, right? I think all of the design situations we are facing is when most of the chance we design one thing for multiple learners. So you will really need to think about each individual, but also you have to overcome the constraints of you are developing something for multiple learners. So you need to try to support each learner, support their multiple means, right? Multiple desires of expressing themselves, presenting themselves, and then their engagement needs. This is something I kind of see connections, what I learned from 10 years ago and what I'm learning and dealing with in my current job or in different job situations. And the other thing is at Beijing Normal University, as an undergraduate student, I took a lot of big lecture hall classes. Those lecture hall classes didn't give me good experience. I feel very less engaged and just tired of even secure a seat in the lecture hall. When I came to IST, I was very engaged in the constructivism, the active learning opportunities, all those PBLs, project-based learning, learning about open learning environments, right? Inquiry-based learning and all of these. So I'm a big advocate of constructivism, social learning and active learning and all of these. So I would say the BNU experience let me know how important the new ways of teaching and learnings are. And I think this is also another reason I love my current job and I have been staying here for a long time. I see what I believe in is aligned with what I'm producing, my team is developing. The platform we try to develop to support teachers to do all kinds of new type of teaching and education. So the other question Dr. Bonk asked earlier, is my position what I imagined when I was in the IST master's program? So the answer is no. I wish I took this class from Dr. Bonk so that I could hear what the IST alumni are doing, their practice, and what are the possible job opportunities out there. I didn't take a class back then, so I didn't have a very clear picture when I was a master's student, what I'm going to do. But eventually when I landed this job, I think it's a good fit. And this is the ideal job diagram I believe you're all familiar with. So I mentioned earlier, I love what I'm doing. I'm doing what I really believe in. And I feel I'm capable of handling different job responsibilities, overcome challenges, and solve problems come out in the daily job. And in terms of whether it pays well, I think it could be better. We all know the education industry isn't very lucrative, but relatively stable. So yes, to the answer, it's a good fit, but really back then I didn't imagine I'm going to have such a job.
But I did. I was her advisor and I knew this was the right job for her. So when I got the call from Dr. Ali Jafari, he says, who do you have that's good? I said, well, Mengyuan, it's good. And so it just happened. Sometimes things just happen, right? So it's good timing. It was just good timing.
And I really appreciate Dr. Bonk always think about his students, many students, and he always help build connections. So if you're looking for some opportunities and you need some help, talk to Dr. Bonk. Dr. Bonk has a lot of good connections there.
Yeah, join me in LinkedIn or some other tool. Yeah.
Responsibility transition over the years. So I have been working on this course networking project for almost 10 years. So definitely many things have changed. And I'm responsible these days on many things. So I summarize them into 3 aspects: software development, the software implementation, and research. So in terms of the software development, when I start the job, we worked a lot on adding learning management features, adding those social learning features, fixing issues. We still do these things these days. However, these days we are enhancing most of the existing features. Like recently, we have this grading tool inside CN, which is not like the speed grader most of the teachers fall in love with. The interface is not that easy, and we do not support annotation on student work. So one of our potential clients told us we must develop like a speed grader and assignment submission annotation tools for teachers. So this is something right now we are developing. But I see a transition to more technology tools integration and developing smart features. The integration I'm saying here is like the LTI through LTI tools, right? Various of platforms can be added onto an existing platform. We are seeking out partnership and integration with commonly used popular tools like Zoom, like Slack, and recently Canva, the PowerPoint, this presentation design tool I'm using here, to hope to incorporate these new and popular tools into the CN platform to support our users to do their work more efficiently and learn more efficiently. And smart learning features, that's the AI part. Just recently, we developed a feature based on voice recognition. So when learners input a post content, right, or a reflection, right, they can click on this tool and then they just talk. You can see the voice recognition here, recognize what I'm saying and type it out. So with the young generation, they write their paper on their phone, right? And these days with maybe with ChatGPT. So we try to catch up, and we think with such feature, we can bring convenience to the students. They can more quickly chime into their class discussions. So this is only one example of it.
Mengyuan, Belle Lee, who was a master's student. Today she sent me a note that an example that ChatGPT can take a transcript of a video, which exists, any video on YouTube, and create a summary of that video.
Super smart.
Can create a summary of the videos that you can watch in like a cliff notes for video. That's really cool.
Yep.
So Amelia in Japan has a question for you.
Yes.
Amelia says, are students complaining about bad grades or posting a political agenda, a problem on the CN, on the student social site? Are they, is it a complaint box, or are they pretty, supportive of one another? Is it more negative or positive?
Positive. So this is based on our almost a decade of experience on such a social learning platform. I think this is a big difference than if teachers just use Facebook, right, or Twitter, those general purpose social media platform. In this learning network platform, you can see students, they follow the instructor's guidance and requirements, expectations very well. I'm conducting my dissertation and is related to this. I talked to many professors, and most of them told me they almost never seen such a case. Students post inappropriate content or have inappropriate language. And on the CN homepage, which is now monitored by course instructors, we have our engine to track what students say. We can very easily detect whether there are inappropriate words, because we have a library, a huge library of inappropriate words, and we rarely see inappropriate discussions. And if that happens, learners can report, and we also immediately take action of hiding it and send the post creator an email.
Yeah, we got worried about this in the 1990s when I was doing asynchronous discussion research and case-based learning of teachers. Somebody, people raise red flags about flaming. Someone might flame. So the only thing we had to take off was someone sent a love note to someone else. Just, it was nothing negative, truly. There was one person who took on role play, was kind of negative and was assuming different roles. And it was sparking discussion and dialogue, and he was the devil's advocate, sort of, or the bloodletter, if you will. But that didn't happen often, and it's often we find the opposite online in asynchronous educational discourse. Students are too nice to one another online. They're afraid to take stances and debate and take positions on issues. They don't want to hurt anyone else's feelings more often than not. And that doesn't mean it's totally a 100%, but in educational social media and educational discussion forums. So Mengyuan is studying educational social media, right? You might
social networking platform.
Yeah, that's your dissertation, right?
Yep,
so
my dissertation.
There's a quadrant she created, 4 quadrants. I wish you had the slide that could show, because it's really nicely done, that shows the types of media and the research that's been done. She's studying a quadrant. It hasn't been looked at that much. It's on the educational side of social media, not the cultural side, right, Mengyuan?
Correct. Yeah. So I analyzed literature about using social networking sites for teaching and learning, and I developed a quadrant based on that's a general purpose SNS or that's educational SNS, and also how much instructor support and scaffolding got put in the instruction into the use of the technology, from no instructor support, student directed to instructor directed, and had a lot of nice findings. And my focus is I'm studying course networking, so it's in the quadrant of academic social networking site with instructor guidance. My topic is higher ed instructors' scaffolding practices to enhance student learning engagement in a social learning environment. And I use course networking as the context.
Very good, very good. We probably have a running low on time here. So do you have you gone through all your slides so we can ask you questions, or you have something left to show us?
Just this one last page. Let me finish here and we can have a few questions. Yeah. And yes, smart learning features, I was talking about this. So besides the voice recognition, we're also incorporating automatically generate hashtags. So right now it's pretty manual. Instructor need to create some first, and students use those instructor suggested. But through the language recognition, the AI agent has such capability. We could read into what student post and directly say, hey, whether you would like to use these hashtags. We could also skip this step, just directly put in some hashtags, but we would like to have the end users to take a look at the possible hashtags and select the most relevant ones. On the CNE portfolio I showed you earlier, we have a very important feature to have students tag their skills. Like they create a showcase, right? And then they can tag the skills demonstrated in that showcase. And this one, many learners, they somehow they don't tag skills, but if they don't tag skills, this will hinder their interactions with others on the platform, and also prevent the viewers, the portfolio viewers, filter relevant evidence artifacts. So we collaborate with a group of Indian professors, computer science professors. They're also a licensee of the CN, so they use name entity recognition, that smart learning, the smart algorithm to automatically read into the text the user put into their showcase and suggest relevant skills. So, we're incorporating and developing more and more smart features. In terms of implementation, when I start a job, I do a lot of training to individual faculty members and to programs. But these days, we see the importance of supporting institutions to have the top-down implementation of a learning platform, no matter that's LMS or that's the e-portfolio, the CM Post. So I have been working a lot on coming up with institution-wide implementation plans and consultation services. Research part, I used to provide data to faculty members who use the platform and interested in writing a paper about CN. But these days, with me in the doctoral program and have more experience in research, I'm collaborating with faculty members and scholars at the Cyber Lab. So we published in our lab last year, we published a couple of papers about Rumi and smart learning agents. So quite interesting and exciting there. Yeah, so I think that's all I have prepared. This is CN from 10 years ago, from when I started.
Yeah, I know Ali would be lost without you there. You're his right-hand person, so I'm glad that it's all worked out. I will say also that you're able to do research well in what is basically more of a techie kind of position. But you're able to extend out to faculty training and development. So really, you're gaining a lot of skills in this job. So let's stop the sharing at this point and see if anyone has any questions for you, Mengyuan, or comments or compliments. Anyone want to? Tiana, did you have something? No, okay. Amelia?
I was just wondering, thank you so much for speaking to our class. This has been very informative and you've basically covered everything. I just looked at your profile and it's very advanced. And I was just wondering, I work with like serious gamers in Japan and I can see it's kind of like addicting. Do those points ever reset, or you come in with someone who already has like a gazillion badges and points and you just try to find your way in there?
So my CME portfolio, it's real. I accumulate that thousands of NRCs over the past 10 years while I use CN every day, doing training, building stuff. The badges, some of them are not real. So I may be doing testing and issue myself some badges.
Give me a couple of those. We all of us, we all want to get some badges.
Yeah, I loved it. I think my students would really get on board with that. So thank you again for speaking with us.
Oh, you are welcome. And the CN platform is open to everyone. Everyone can go on the cn.com and sign up a free account. Teachers can create their free courses. Just to start from during the pandemic, we start limiting the number of courses teachers can create, but just reach out to me. I give you unlimited courses.
So put your email in the chat again for everyone, although they probably already have it. Just, she's in the IU system. She probably has a couple different emails that she can be contacted at, including a Gmail account and so forth. So that's great if Amelia's students in Japan want to jump in and try it out, or if Tiana's people in Letty Hall in informatics want to try it out, whatever, you guys just experiment with a small pilot and just see, try it for a week even, just, or two weeks and see what happens after that. So Jennifer's down in Dallas Community College, and Brandon's here in Bloomington. And Chao Ying is in Bloomington as well. Kristen was in Indianapolis, you were saying, or we were born in Indiana, Kristen, or that was Jennifer.
Yeah, no, I'm Northeast.
Northeast, right. And Nader, you're in Bloomington or no? Oh, we don't hear you. That's okay. So anyone else have a question for her before she has to go?
I had a quick question, and feel free to answer quickly.
Yes,
but I was wondering, I have some experience with working with, my former employer was an ebook reader and courseware provider. So we got really in the weeds on, we used LTI to work seamlessly between our e-reader platform and learning management systems so that students could launch courseware or their text electronically, like single sign-on into their LMS and view their ebook. So in what way would the CN social platform, like what benefits would it provide to an institution or to an organization just with kind of like the light version of the LMS?
Yeah. So institutions who are interested in the CN Lite version typically are looking for alternative to the traditional discussion forums provided by the learning management system. They want to have a more student-centered, relatively informal discussion space for their students. Yeah, and then the CN social discussion really can be used to create an online community for students, especially if you teach fully online courses.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Welcome.
It's interesting, isn't it, to hear from it's a startup company in some ways. In some ways, it's beyond the startup phase, right?
Yeah, it's long enough.
Yeah, it's long enough beyond the startup phase. So we're hearing a kind of a history of a relatively new company, though, that is based on the successes of previous ones. So it's kind of an interesting story. It's right here in Indiana too. So, oh, you were going to mention possible jobs. Your eyes lit up before when I mentioned job openings. People are going to watch the recording, so those watching the recording might want to learn about new jobs. So, what do you have?
So we continuously hiring IST students at our cyber lab. So it's actually a IU job. So last year, Dr. Bonk sent several people to us. They have all been wonderful and very helpful. We will, based on your experience, to find the right project. And you can see we do all kinds of stuff to find the right position. That may be an education consulting type of position if you have more experience, or if you are interested in instructional design or putting courses onto a technology platform. So right now, we are working on a Indiana Department of Education IDOE funded project. It's called WRCA, Well-Rounded Course Access Framework, through IU Partnership. So IU Partnership got this grant, $3 million grant, and various of IU parts, units are working on the project. The CN came in, CyberLab came in as the technology, the platform provider. And there is a group, they're doing the UDL, DEI, in learning kind of a staff, providing instructional design support and consultation support to those teachers. So I forgot to mention this program. The goal is in 4 years developing 90 courses, high school, middle school courses for all Hoosier students, for students in Indiana. So this year we got around 20 teachers, and very soon this project will open up 3 to 4 part-time, they call it course development specialist positions, part-time. So if you are looking for a side hustle, practice your instructional design skills and work with a couple of teachers of the program to put their course onto the course networking platform. Later on, once I have the job announcement, I will send to Dr. Bonk, and Dr. Bonk can help put the link, distribute the link, and welcome to apply.
So is this money part of the stimulus package? Or part, that
I think so. Yeah, I think the source is the federal stimulation. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, funding.
So
Yeah.
This is part of the funding cycle of things that happen.
Yep.
Department of Ed, about 20 years ago, Department of Ed had all these money for teacher training, and then all of a sudden it was no longer there. Right now we're seeing the same kind of thing, but through the stimulus package, we're seeing all sorts of innovation. I've never seen this much money or grants available, especially AI related again, is a big area. Computational thinking and online learning because of the pandemic and so forth. So
although, the program developed middle school and high school courses, but the courses are, they are on various of interesting topics, AP courses, courses that rural area high school in Indiana won't be able to have the teacher resources to teach their students. So that's why their student could sign up these courses through the WRCA project. So they have courses like financial intelligence, helping kids learn financial knowledge, AP history, calculus, and art design, and also like teaching courses, how to design online teaching, those kind of stuff. I believe offered to high school students who want to become a teacher later.
Any final comments from anyone? So let's give Mengyuan a round of applause here.
Thank you, everyone.
It's very wonderful to have you in here. I'm going to stop the pause the recording here for a second. So this is being paused, part 2, pausing. Thank you, Mengyuan. Resume. So this is all going to be one recording tonight. This is part 3. Those of you watching the recording later, part 3 of 3, I hope. And I hope someone out there in the ether is watching IU basketball, and hopefully the women are beating Ohio State. And if they're not, don't let me know. And if they are, don't let me know that either. I don't want to know, but I do want to know when we're done, and I'll look when we're done. Anyways, if you're not familiar, IU is ranked number 2 or 2 to 3 in the country, and the number 2 team, LSU, lost on Sunday. So today's the rankings. I'm not sure where they were. You could probably look that up. It's the highest they've ever been ranked ever. Women's basketball, they're quite good. Okay, Amelia, Kristen, Nader, Tiana, Jennifer, anything you want to get to? If not, I'm going to go to share my screen and see what comes up. Let's see if I can do this without nixing everybody out of the system. All right, there's where we are. Okay, great. So I had this little memory test, and I said, you could count the number of syllables in the words or attach emotions to them. B words might be something you attach emotion to. When I hold up a car, it says blanket or typewriter or jello. And it's cognitive theory shows that when you attach emotions to something, you'll tend to remember it more than if you attach a number to it. It's a standard cognitive psychology test that's been done over time. Some people might chunk these words together. Some people might tell a story. Some people might remember more words at the beginning or the end. That's called a primacy and recency. Primacy means the first couple of words. Recency means the last couple of words. There are different kinds of memory effects that could take place, indicating what words would be most prominent in your recall. If you're like me, you probably can't remember too much of what you had for lunch yesterday. You probably didn't have lunch yesterday if you're like me. You just had a bunch of berries and carrots and celery sitting next to you. I guess that we could call that lunch too. What cognitive psychologists in particular have pointed out over time, in particular Alan Pavio in Western Ontario University in London, Ontario, looks at dual coding theory. Alan Pavio is also well known for mnemonics and bizarre mnemonics, and showing how the more bizarre the mnemonic, the more likely we'll remember information. I had a chance to meet his daughter and son-in-law at a conference in London, Ontario, about 15 years ago when I spoke there. He had just recently passed away, but I read his work in grad school, and what he says that we have two forms of representation in our memories. We have the verbal track and the imaginal track. I think we also have a chronological track, a time date stamp for all our encounters in life. At least I recall things on a timeline or according to dates, and the same with those people who remember everything they had on particular dates. So, words that we can more easily imagine, take a picture of or create a figural image of, we're more likely to remember them. He created dual coding theory. He proposed that if we store things both in an image, a figural image, as well as with text and verbal memory, that we're more likely to recall that. So we have two possible tracks to store and then to in turn retrieve it from. So it's important to have both verbal memory and to remember the definitions of something, but also to visualize a instance of that particular concept or theory or person and so forth. And we try to interconnect those two systems by, through this information processing model, that we attend to certain information, visual or verbal. And if we store that or rehearse that or elaborate on it long enough, we can store it into our long-term memory space and have two different tracking mechanisms to pull that back from. And we have our executive control, our executive monitor, which is also called metacognitive aids, to in turn plan, monitor, summarize, supervise, in effect, just monitoring the entire system. So we can show a multimedia film which has words and pictures in it, and it goes through our eyes, it comes through our ears, and we select different words and we select different images, and we attend to them and put that into our prior knowledge. And so a lot of cognitive psychologists, when I was going to grad school in the late 80s, believe it or not, they were focused on what was called PK, not psychokinetic energy, but prior knowledge. Now maybe psychokinetic energy and trying to get some balloons that are flying over, Alaska and whatnot by aliens to come down. But I digress. But PK is extremely important. Some people build their entire research career on trying to understand students' prior knowledge and the use of their prior knowledge and the impact of prior knowledge on additional learning. And in effect, your Piagetian know that as schema theory, and I'll get to Piaget next week or the week after. So, you know, this is really the cognitive theory of multimedia. So Richard Mayer at UC Santa Barbara, who was a guest in this class a year and a half ago, who you can watch in the playlist, he's in the syllabus, has popularized Alan Pavio's theory about dual coding by trying to look at different forms of media, different instructional delivery elements, and how they're paired up together with one another, how visual images and the words might be effectively integrated within an instructional design sequence. And he looks at the timing of it and the personalization or conversational tone. He looks at all sorts of things. In fact, he has 7 things that he found to be the most important elements. Well, here he's talking about the 9. Let me try and get rid of this window. I have a hide floating controls. There we go. So he has an article with Moreno on 9 ways to reduce cognitive load in multimedia learning. That I think is in Dropbox. I think it's in your articles for this week or one of the weeks in here. You'll have different articles from Richard Mayer. He is the most famous educational psychologist as of 20 years ago. And he's always gotten more famous. He's got the highest Google Scholar ranking of any psychologist that I know of. It's just out of this world. The guy does extreme a lot. He's extremely prolific, let's just say. And he has this article's in for this week. So if you're looking at week 6 articles, article number 1 by Silber and Fauché. Rob Fauché is a former student of IST who won an Outstanding Alumni Award. He was a guest in this class 2 years ago. The second article is by Richard Mayer, who's a guest in this class a year and a half ago. The third article is by Tom Duffy, who is a emeritus faculty of IST. So this week's replete with connections to the IST department. Brent Wilson, University of Colorado, Denver, was a guest in this class a year and a half ago. That's article 4. David Jonathan, article 5. He's been mentioned several times in here, constructivism and authentic learning. Towards a design theory of problem solving. Rand Spiro, who's a University of Illinois person, we still read him. He's moved to Michigan State. He's into a cognitive flexibility theory, like learning through case-based learning in different cases. And if we learn enough cases, we'll see the themes in those cases and have richer knowledge to retrieve things from. Article 6, John Savory, an outstanding alum of IST. He got the best dissertation award 25 years ago. A good friend of mine, he spoke in this class a year and a half ago. He talks about problem-based learning. And then number 7 and 8 are just videos from me on cognitive theory and constructivist theory. There's lots of good stuff in week 6, in week 7, in week 8. I mean, this really exciting stuff. And when I dig in a little more on things. So Mayer talks about 3 assumptions about the mind, about the dual channels of processing information, having limited capacity, and the more actively we process information, the better. And I've got to click on this to move. So we have a verbal system. It stores words and sentences and so forth. And basically he's saying humans have 2 different systems for representing information, verbal and nonverbal. And multimedia can help. The way we create our instructional design approaches, we can minimize the load, the cognitive load on the learner so that they can attend to more information and organize that information and select information in an efficient and productive manner. And so it's really important to engage the learner by providing an organizational aid, some kind of coherent structure for them, finding ways to help them integrate the knowledge that you've taught them, and so forth, to get them more active. Now, here's his 7 principles out of 9. He has a multimedia principle. Narration and animation is better than just narration alone, okay? So to see something happen as you hear a narration can more concretize things and solidify things internally for someone. Spatial contiguity principle. If you present something on a computer screen rather near the text, that's better than far away. So that's a duh finding. So having the text go on the screen when you hear it or when you see it that's more effective than separating the two elements. The temporal contiguity principle: present corresponding animation and narration simultaneously rather than successfully. I just basically said that. Then the coherence principle: don't do too much. If you try and have, like my PowerPoints used to be like 59 things flying at you and zooming off into the world and animate, just jumping up, and it doesn't work. To have limited multimedia, just have words and sounds, is better than words, sound, and video. To just have sound and video is better than, animation, sounds, and video. So you don't want to do too much to the learner and overwhelm them. Present animation and narration rather than animation and on-screen text. So he found in his research with many people, or they found, that certain types of media work well together, like animation and narration. Redundancy principle, and I mentioned this already. Basically, animation and narration works better than animation, narration, and on-screen text. And then having a conversational tone. These are some of the things that you will learn from Richard Mayer. Now, if you don't want to know everything, but want to know enough, you can buy his book on multimedia learning. That's probably what I would recommend for people. David Jonathan, you could read for this week. We'll talk about different forms of problem solving and expertise around problem solving. I'll skip that. Animation research, Lloyd Reber at Georgia talks about how to gain one's attention through animations, but not overwhelming them. Attention-getting graphics can help make relationships clearer, but you don't want to have 10 or 20 animations going off at one point in time, like I used to do, because that will overwhelm. Now, to end tonight, 8 applied cognitive theory recommendations for you. 8 applied cognitive. So we want to take theory and go into practice. One thing cognitive psychologists have found is that if you ask the learners to organize the content, that's better than the instructor organizing said content. So forcing people, like I often do in P511 and 622, have the learners create a concept map, have the learners create a taxonomy, have the learners create a timeline. That's a powerful mechanism. So those flow charts, those Venn diagrams are all tools that can help the learner explicate their knowledge and solidify it so that it's better understood, right? The second thing is recognize that we can't attend to too much, and that's why I didn't go to the second. I just stayed with the first lecture tonight. If I did the second lecture on constructivism, you'd probably go bonkers and wacko. So we just stay with cognitive theory tonight. Help the learners focus attention by having certain kinds of techniques like text signals. When you read, you have red text that highlights it for you. Boom, it's coming out. Highlighting, question asking, all sorts of subtle cues, that underlining kinds of things will help the learners identify main points, just like having an abstract, having the key points of the chapter, having ending reflection questions, having questions before they read the text. Those are ways to highlight what's going to come up. Providing an organizational structure, maybe you have to sometimes give them the graphic organizer or the visual representation or the quote or some kind of analogy or metaphor to help organize that structure in their brain or bring up the example so that then when you get to that class activity or the problem solving activity, they understand that content a little better. Again, I think I said this before, recognize that we're going to be limited as human beings. There's a bottleneck as a human being, unless you have a lot of help and support from computer tools around you, we're limited to 7 plus or minus 2 items. And so don't present 49,000 items. Number 5, try and match the way the information was encoded when you delivered the lecture or the content and so forth, when the learners learn the lesson, or to the way it's going to be asked to recall that. Now, you might say that you're simplifying things too much for the learners. You're making it too easy. Learning is never easy. Learning is an arduous process, effortful. We want to make it fun. It can be fun at times and should be, like the gamification of the CN, as Mengyuan presented to us. But if you want it processed deeply, You have to ask questions and let students manipulate something in their environments and try out ideas and share ideas and so forth. Number 6, provide opportunities for both learning it with an image and learning the words, the sentence, the verbal information, and clarifying something. It could be just simple weather patterns that you're showing an illustration of the gigantic winter storm we might be having next week. I don't know, as well as explaining that winter storm that might be approaching. I don't think we're going to have one for a while. And then let students practice to try it out, see if it works, try out the skills. We talked to a couple Brazilian and people in Bogota, Colombia, instructors last week for my research, and they talked about the importance of letting learners try the skills out that they were teaching. One was teaching art, another one was teaching finance, one was teaching digital marketing. It didn't matter. They all wanted to create techniques for the students to try it out. They were developing massive open online courses, or MOOCs, in South America. And that's what I'm studying. And then number 10, help learners become self-regulated. Let them select the appropriate strategies, such as summarizing, questioning, planning, paraphrasing, clarifying, predicting, all sorts of things that you want them to do. And so what can we do in the classroom based on this theoretical approach? So you can go to my video. I go through some of the same things, only a little more depth than that. I'm just going to pause here and just say the articles this week are all good. You won't find a dud anywhere. And so, you know, they're all keepers. And Rob Fauché, John Savory, just they're alums and they're interesting people. I mean, they're really good people. And you're worth, you know, at least opening a page or two and having read. John Savory was studying PBL, problem-based learning, before he dissertated. And so he knew more than most faculty when he was dissertating on the topic of problem-based learning. It was an interesting dissertation defense. He won outstanding dissertation, but initially flunked his defense and had to redo it, even though he was so smart, even though he got outstanding dissertation award, because we knew we could push John to do more. He had moved to Denver right before dissertating and didn't have access to a library. So he thought he could footnote some of his references and we wouldn't let him get away with it. He thought he could cite his own work. And we said, no, you have to cite more than your own work. And so, you know, even success comes in stages. Even people who are highly successful, you can read out there, they have failures. We all have failures and flaws and things we wish we could do over. And John's a dear friend right now, dealing with cancer of the spine. He's trying to overcome, as he just retired from the University of Akron. And he's out in Arizona now, and I've been corresponding with him. He's overcome a few setbacks, not just this cancer one, but one before it since moving out. But he had a brilliant dissertation, and we made him work for it. And everyone works for it in some way, shape, or form, and pushes a little bit. You push the envelope a little bit. We want to get you to the edge of what you can do. You know, our goal is not to push you too far beyond. We want to find that happy zone where we can get you just doing a little bit more, you know, and exceeding beyond your expectations, right? You know, to have you. So it's called proleptic instruction, teaching in anticipation of competence. You don't want to just teach from what people already know, but you want to teach from what you think they can know and can do. And I'll get to Vygotsky, where he talks about zones of proximal development and getting people to move towards the ZPD, and that we want them to be given hints, nudges, questions at the edge of what they can't do and what they eventually can do. You want to push to that edge, not give them questions on what they already can do, because that's fossilized skills. Well, that's taking cognitive theory the next step. And we'll be taking cognitive theory the next step. It looks like I have 3 lectures on constructivism. So it looks like maybe the next 3 weeks, and authentic learning. So we might be talking about authentic learning, constructivism, cognitive apprenticeship for the next 3 weeks, and Piagetian learning, and all sorts of things. Any comments or questions about what was discussed tonight?
I have a question regarding cognitive overload. And I think you had said before, and correct me if I'm wrong, that multitasking is just giving short spurts of attention to different items.
Yeah.
And so my question is, if digital natives that are raised with always being wired into things, is that a myth? To be someone who's watching these YouTube videos at like 2x speed or something like that, is that something learners have changed, or fundamentally that's just something being promoted?
Well, there's multiple things in what you're asking.
Okay.
There are studies that show that perceptual skills and hand-eye coordination has increased because people play games. And so the ability to multitask in terms of opening different media elements up and making them available. So there's making things available to learn and accessible to learn. That's probably true, a truism. But actually having learned from those in a multitasking fashion, that's not true. Okay, so that's why there's difficulty understanding or comprehending what this new digital age of learner is like, because some might be referring to the fact that, oh, he's got this paper open and his her mobile's open and her tablet's there. Yeah, you can have all those devices there. We've always had multiple devices. We have pen and paper, and we've had markers and highlighters. We've always had multiple things available at our disposal as learners. Today, they're more powerful than ever before. And so because of that power, they can call up content more readily. And it looks like you're attending to all that content in a multifaceted manner. And if you do try to attend to that content in a multifaceted manner, you may get through it, proverbially through the content, but that's probably going to only be at a 40% completion rate or a retention rate, as opposed to those that serially learn the information who can recall things at a 70 or 80 percentile rate. So there is research. I think it's University of Iowa State early on had a study looking at that. And so, but there's probably many more studies since that time that are worth looking. And that topic is worthy of a paper in this class, and you could substitute one of the task 3 or task 4 if that's of extreme interest to you. The notion of multitasking and how it affects instructional designers. I would particularly be interested in, how an instructional designer has to take into account the 21st century learner, the digital learner, and is it a myth, or are there multiple myths out there about how they learn, and what are the actual myths and what are the truisms? I think that might be worthwhile exploring, and I appreciate the question, Amelia. That's a really great question, and we should be, but there's another side effect to that, and that's called nomophobia. That's the phobia of missing your mobile phone, which another IST alum has done research on. She's at Ohio State. Her name's Ana Paula Correa, Correia. And she's looked at nomophobia, and that's worth a paper in and of itself too. That's a very interesting area. If you teach my class a year from now on emerging learning technologies, maybe we bring Ana Paula in and talk to her about nomophobia and other kinds of trends that are happening in emerging technologies.
So, Curt, if I do a paper on nomophobia, that would replace what, task 3, 4?
I think task 3.
Task
Yeah.
3.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe task 4.
Okay.
I think they're both worth 30 points, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
And I think I have. I think it would fit better with task 3. But I'd be open to having it replace task 4.
Okay. Because kind of the issue, I mean, it's a trend, right? So cell phones are a trend. I would say if it could replace the video for the trend, because cell phones are a big part of our lives. So
yeah, I just read an article yesterday on the TikTok videos and the implications for delivery of instruction. And now it's being banned in universities, but I'd be open to TikTok as how it can be used in education, how instructional designers could embed shared online videos.
Wondering about actually, is this Be Real trend, which I really hate? Like at 2 p.m., everybody freezes, snaps a picture of themselves and keeps going. It's like stuff you see in sci-fi movies. It's crazy.
And they're almost like cyborgs.
Yeah, it's like we're walking, ding, be real. Everybody stops, pulls out their phone, takes a picture, walks and continues their day. It's like,
They
I don't know if
try-
you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy? This is going on. I swear, this is like, yeah.
So they're trying to create a community that is really a fake community.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know, if it was family-based and small group, I could understand if you have real close friends. But if it's a anybody, anywhere kind of thing,
Anybody, anywhere.
but a 1 or 2 times, that'd be okay. But if they're doing this every day, I have,
Yeah.
psychological issues with that.
Oh,
And
God.
Tiana's laughing because she's doing it every day. No, no, she's not. But I'm sure she sees her students walking through Luddy Hall, holding up their cameras all the time. I don't know. She doesn't know what they're doing there.
That
So-
answers a lot, because I'm always wondering why people are like always just snapping, and it could be of nothing. I mean, I watched my high schooler do it when we're driving down the street. Of
Yeah.
nothing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, really?
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, anything else? This is great. Both questions. So there are unlimited topics that you could be doing papers on in the reflections or activity. It doesn't have to be a paper. You could interview people who are doing this and write a little research up about it, or create a video clip about the young digital learner and how they learn. I mean, that would be just as useful as any of these other topics. So in 6, 7, 8, a lot of people's final assignment is interviewing people in their local work environments, trying to explain how new technologies are being adapted in the real world by their family or by their employees or by their colleagues or whatever, by multiple generations of learners, 10-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and 4-year-olds, so forth. Yeah, these are great. Both of those are great questions to end with tonight. Does anyone have a great question to end? A third one? I'm scaring people from asking. They go, "Oh, I don't have a great question. I don't know. Please." So how about a great compliment for Mengyuan on tape here, since she's not here anymore? Anyone want to say anything about Mengyuan?
That was really informative and fantastic. And yeah, she was a great guest speaker. And I'm glad that she was able to come back to our class. But I was nervous the next classes, if you keep, like you say, asking her, she's going to get tired out or something. But really fortunate that she spoke to us tonight. And with all the screen sharing, we got to actually see the platform explained at the same time, which makes it so much easier to understand than just reading a paper about it.
Yeah. Well, last time she went into too much detail, as she said, she went really into the little nuts and bolts of every tool in there. This is a cool tool. Look at this one we just created. That's all great, but it was like a lot longer presentation. That's more for if we go up and visit in Indianapolis or something, and want to, have a lunch with all of them, which we did last year. We actually went up and shared, and we had a dissertation defense held up there too. So we did double, triple, because we had social drinking afterwards. So it was a good time up in Indianapolis last year at the garage and at the AMP. There's 2 startup companies, one in an old garage depot, an old Coca-Cola factory, and so two different parts. So one is minority-owned businesses north of IUPUI, and one is kind of a lot of restaurants. You can order any food you want, and and it was really cool. It was really fun. Indianapolis is a lot going for it right now. So does Bloomington. Thanks for any last thing?
Yeah, I agree that this lecture and this guest speaker was very informative, and we're fortunate to have been able to listen to the information that were presented today. Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's organized. She was my TA as a master's student. Okay, that's how good she is.
Oh, wow.
I normally only get doctoral students to be my TA. Her second semester or first semester as a master's student, she was my TA. It's only happened a few times. Yeah, she's good. She's good. I'm glad she came back for her doctorate. So I will stop this recording. Week 6, part 3, right